And start recording. I will post a recording of this workshop on our website. That should be available either later today or Monday at the latest. I'm going to just kind of cover some ground rules before I start getting into the building our solution and going through our workshop session. So my name is Will Cooper. I am the training coordinator for Infowise. Some of you may have heard me before. I do webinars and write articles and do kind of a variety of things for Infowise. Outside of that, I am a SharePoint solutions developer. I work with several different businesses that use SharePoint, both SharePoint Online and on-premise SharePoint. And I really, like to build solutions, and I'm especially excited about the emphasis of our session today, which is the new form designer. I do want to make sure that all of you know, even though you're muted, this is an interactive session, and I'm very interested in your questions throughout the workshop. I will try to do my very best to be attentive to those questions. There is a tool in the GoToWebinar toolbar, which you can see. So please feel free to add questions at any time. I may not be able to address the question right away if I'm working through a particular section, but I promise you that I will try to get to it, and I will pause periodically to do that. So please try to interact with me so that I can be sure to answer questions that you may have. Just to talk about what we're doing, in all of these Build It Now sessions, we always start from nothing. I've never liked it when somebody kind of does all the magic behind the curtains first and then tells you how it's done. You really want to see everything step by step. So that's what we're going to do. I do feel that this tool is extremely important for Ultimate Forms. It really represents a major change in terms of the tool set and your ability to do form customization. And I'm hoping in our session today, you'll begin to gain more of a comfort on how to use that tool and start to get a better grip on how to take advantage of its features. For those of us who've used Infowise for a while, of course, we've used the tabs and tabs permission settings to build forms, and of course, this tool represents a major change to that. Let me go ahead and get my browser screen shared out, and we'll kind of just dive right in. Now, in the very first part of this, I'm actually going to be working according to a getting started tutorial that I posted recently within the last month and a half or so. Stephen was asking about the length. I'm not sure exactly, Stephen. My guess is we're probably going to be between 1 hour and 1.5 hours. If you do have to drop off early for any reason, that's okay. Like I said, I'm going to post a link to the recording. So don't feel as if you're going to miss out. If for some reason you got to jump and grab some lunch or something like that, that would be okay. You can kind of just pick up where you left off. Okay, so I am in SharePoint Online, and what I'm going to do is I'm just starting from a plain vanilla SharePoint custom list. I've kind of walked through these steps already. I have another list called projects, and I'm going to do this from projects too, because like I said, I'm going to really go through every step. I just want to reiterate, if you go into our tutorial section, the very first part of what I'm going to do, which I'm going to go through pretty quickly, is in the getting started, which is the form designer, make a basic form. I just wanted you to be aware so that if you follow along and build this solution later, and I hope that you do, you can start from this section. So this is just going to be the first part of what we do. Okay. Yeah, it's just plain vanilla SharePoint custom lists. As is always the case with any of your SharePoint solutions, the first thing you got to do is go and set up your field. So I'm just going to kind of try to crank through some of this stuff quickly. So our list is going to be called projects. I'm going to rename the title field and just call it project instead, and save that. So our first part isn't actually being in the form designer. We got to set up some fields real quickly first, but we're going to get to that momentarily. And then general concept of what we're building is just kind of like a project management tool. So it's sort of a generic concept. So just to give some explanation, but the things that we'll go through today really apply for any kind of form that you want to build. Okay, so I'm going to do project leader. That's going to be a SharePoint people picker. And we'll say that that is a required field. Okay, that's good. Next thing I'll do is project team. That'll be another people picker field, but I want to allow for multiple names on this one. So say project team and person. And this time I will allow for multiple selections. Sure, that looks good. Make that required. I'll make that not in the default view. I'm just going to add 8 fields in this section. Okay, next one's status. So we just want kind of a general idea of what status the project would be in. Now I'm going to set this up as a SharePoint choice field initially, but I'm going to convert it to color choice here in a second, because I'm sure for you Infowise veterans, that's what you like to use. I know that's what I like to use. For status, we're just going to do not started. That'll be the default state. And then when you first get going, and then kick off, in progress, hold, canceled, complete. So, just basic ideas for that. That will be required, defaulting to not started. That's fine. Okay. Then we're going to do a category. That'll be another choice field. It's just a way to categorize what type of project this is. So category choice and required. And for categories, I'm not going to have a whole lot. I'm just going to do customer, sales, R&D, training. None of these values are that critical. They're just kind of example things. It's just filler information so we can do some practice work. I won't do a default for that. We'll say that's required. That's fine for that. That's another one we're going to convert to color choice. And then we need a training date field. Now, the way I'm going to set this one up is we're just going to show this if it's a training category. So I'll show you the configuration for that a little bit later. So this is a date time. I don't want to make it required because it won't always be required, only be conditionally required. So not required, don't want that in the default view. And then I'm going to do description. This will be a multi-line rich text editor field. Okay. I'll say not required for that one. I do want to use enhanced rich text. That could be a long one, so I'm not going to put it in the default view. And then I need 2 more. I need percent complete. This is just going to hold a number. So that's a number field. I want an integer from 1 to 100. Say not required, 0. Let's say, 0 to 100. Default to 0. Yeah, I give it a min max. 0 to 100. This is so we can do a progress bar. Okay, and one more of these manager notes. This will be another multi-line text. This can be a rich text editor also. Multi-line text. Say not required. We'll make that 12. Enhanced rich text, that's fine. Don't need it in the default view. Okay. Okay, so that's good for that part. Okay, now we're going to go into some Infowise stuff. Get to have a little bit more fun now. Okay, so for this list, I'm just going to the design screen, and I'll go ahead and do those color choice columns first. Just going to assign some icons for these choice fields I made. So there's category, I'll do show as icon, and it doesn't really matter what I pick too much. I'm just kind of showing example. I guess I'll use these letters. That seems fine to me. Sales, R&D, training. Okay, just going to click update. It should give me a little green confirmation bubble. There it is. And then do the similar kind of thing for status. And we'll just pick up some icons for that. Let's see. Sometimes I spend way too much time doing these. It's too much fun trying to find just the right icon for everything. We'll do that for kickoff. We'll do a green arrow for in progress. Green means go. Hold. We'll do like a exclamation, red, canceled, and complete. Let's do dash and complete. We'll just give it a nice green check mark. Okay, and then just click update. Okay, so just real basic stuff there. Okay, we're going to do a signature field next. We want to have a manager signature. So I'm going to go to do an Infowise signature field. This is a new column I'm creating. So I'm going to call this manager signature. We're kind of doing all this stuff so we can see what this is going to look like in our new form designer, because of course it looks different than the way that it did when we used the tabs and tab settings to do things. Okay, so for this one, I want this to sign off on status. It's kind of arbitrary. You can set this however you want. It's just, that's how I want it to work. Like if they set the project complete, I want somebody to come and sign off that it is complete. And I'm going to use handwritten because we want to see what that looks like in our new form designer. And I want it to be expanded. So that's how we're going to do manager signature. All right, it's working on that. There it is. We got a success message. We like to see that. Now I want to do a indicator field. So this was the progress. Remember I was doing the progress percentage. So I'm going to call it progress. This is going to be a new field. This is so we can see a nice progress bar on our dashboard. Display mode is going to be progress bar, and it's using the value from % complete. Remember that integer from 0 to 100? That's what I'm pulling from. Okay, so I just put in 0 to 100 for my start and goal values. Default for the color bar, that's fine for now. You can do fancy things with that where when you reach certain values, it can change colors. That's kind of a newer feature of that, so that's something you can play with later if you want to. I will save that. So this is all just some basic setup work we're doing so we can have something actually put into our form. Okay, so we got our indicator. All right, at last, we're going to actually go into Form Designer. Okay, so it's the very top link. Must be important. Okay, it always asks you this when you first come in. Now, either one's okay. If you let it generate a default form, it just sort of adds some fields for you. I guess it's my personality or whatever. I like to do things from scratch. So I am going to hit cancel, especially because I want to demonstrate, kind of building everything from scratch in our workshop today. So, but either one's okay. It's not a problem if you did the pre-generate. You can change those controls and do whatever you want. So here's our form designer interface. Now, Actually, what I want to do, well, I guess I don't have to do that yet. What I was going to say is I'm going to have a couple tabs going. I don't need to do that right this second, but I will. You'll see how that's going to be useful later on. So for those of you with the web background, especially in old school HTML, in terms of the way a web page works, it's really just tables within tables within tables. It's a grid, right? And you have all these various containers. So the concept of the container is important. It's kind of like the fundamental bucket, if you will, that holds controls and other sections. And containers can hold containers. So you're always going to have an outer container in your page. That's kind of like the first control we need to drag and drop onto the form. I really like that you can drag and drop. There's really nothing else like that in Ultimate Forms that I'm aware of. It just kind of makes things intuitive. And I also like the, what you see is what you get kind of interface. So I know how things are going to turn out before I even open up my form on another page. All right, so I've got my container there. I like for my form to have a bit of a gray background, so I'm going to do that. So there's always a context, if you will. So when I'm working with controls and things in my form, whatever I've clicked on, you're going to see a description at the bottom that tells me. So I just have the outer container. And on the right side, you're going to see context-specific settings, which means I'm applying settings for that specific control or field or whatever is in focus, basically. So I'm going to add a style. What you'll see me do today, you don't have to do this. You could ignore it, but I really encourage you to do it. If you put a description at the top, it kind of helps things to be a little more intuitive. It serves as a reminder of why you apply various settings. This is loosely equivalent to putting comments in code for any of you guys who've done some programming. So it's a good habit to build, and I hope that you kind of build that habit in your first use of the system. So I want to do background gray. So I'm just describing the setting I'm getting ready to apply. This one's real easy. So you have a little color control here. I'm going to do, really light gray. So I'm going to do, I kind of do a lot with hex colors, so I know what they are. I just did DDD, and that's what it gives me. That's all I have to do. I just click save, and immediately you can kind of see the background of the container change. And you see the description. So without even editing that, I know, instead of it just saying setting 1, I know this is a style entry I put in to make the background gray. So it's a good idea to label those. All right. Next thing I need to do, as we so often like to do in our Ultimate forms, is we like to have tabs, right? So I need a tabs control, and it goes in the container. See how you can kind of see where it's going to go? Everything I'm going to do today, I'm going to drag it into that container. We'll get into putting containers in containers later. Okay, so there's our tab control. It just kind of gives us the default tab 1, tab 2. So now we can manipulate that and change it to include what we want. Okay, so what we're going to do is go into the settings and change that, and then we'll publish. Now, publish is really important. Notice there is a preview and save. I don't tend to use those a whole lot. I tend to like to just click the publish button, sort of just cut right to the chase. Save would allow you to do a draft. The save concept would be more critical to you if, say, you had a live form and there were people using your form. It may be that you want to do some changes or make adjustments without that impacting people who are using that live form. In that case, it might be more applicable. Preview will show you what the form might look like based on different kind of devices like tablets and phones. My preference is typically to use another tab and actually have the form open and just keep refreshing that. So that's going to be the kind of thing that I tend to do. Just to emphasize my concept of publishing often, you'll see me click this quite a lot. I just tend to like to do this because I want to make sure my results are saved. Just in general, I think that's a good idea. I mentioned it's going to make your life a lot easier if you get a couple tabs going. So what I want to do is kind of go back and forth. I'm not going to do it just this second, but I'm going to basically create a new record. I'm going to have the new form open, and I'm going to keep refreshing that page to see what these changes look like that I'm setting up. Okay, so we're going to do, we're just going to change these. See, it just says tab 1. It's just, oh, I deleted it. Okay, it doesn't matter. We can just make another one. You just type whatever you want here. It's just as simple as it could possibly be. Project, and let's say manager. Okay, and that just changes real time. Okay, now we need to put on those all those fields that we created. It's just drag and drop. That's all you got to do. This part's really easy. Okay, so we're going to do project. And we can always move it later too. So, don't feel as, once you drop it on the form, you can't do anything. You can just move them around and reorder them. And the drag and drop interface just makes that really easy to do. And also notice that once you drag it on there, it's not on your columns list on the left. So that's kind of nice because you kind of know that you've covered all of your fields. I like that. Okay, so we want project team. Then we'll do description next. So all I'm doing is just dragging this stuff down into my form. And we're going to get on all those cool customizations here after we kind of get the nuts and bolts put together first. Okay, then we're going to have the training date, status, percent complete. Okay, I think that's all the main controls for that. And then the manager tab, just as if I'm in the form, I can just click on the tab to highlight that. I'm going to do manager notes and then manager signature. Those are the two fields I need. I'm going to publish. Okay, so basically beginning at this point, I want to open this new form. I want to bounce back and forth. I want to confirm my changes. I want to make sure that this is doing what I expect it to do. Okay, so there's kind of my initial form set up. So that's good. It's just kind of a good touch base. I don't need to do a whole lot with this yet. I'll go ahead and create a dummy record. Why not? If you ever watch my stuff, I always do this. I name things after fruit. Apples project. All right, put in me. Put a couple of my team members in here. So this is kind of cool. We're starting to see how this looks a little different than other things we're used to. All right. Just putting in some dummy text. Yep, looks good. Okay, sales, training day, I'll just skip that for now, not started. Let's say it's 30% complete. And we can just kind of skip those for now. Well, we'll do signature, why not? Beautiful, okay. Yeah, it never hurts to have a dummy record. Sometimes people kind of skip that for a while, but it's a good idea. And there's our progress bar, so see that, it's good. And just as an offside, there is the new forms experience as far as like the list view and things like that. It's going to work fine in either case. Sometimes you'll see me kind of go back and forth between that. It's just a personal preference, but don't worry as far as whether you have to use one or the other. That's entirely up to you. The form itself is going to look the same regardless of which setting you have in the advanced settings for the list. Okay, so here, let's open up the edit form. And I'm going to kind of leave this open. What you're going to see me do is kind of refresh this page, because what I want to do is check and see, as I make changes, how that's going to affect things. Okay. The last thing I kind of want to do as far as this initial stuff coming off the article before we kind of jump into the next things is I want to create some permissions rules for training date. If you recall, training date only applies when category is training. right? So what I want to do is apply rules for that, permissions rules. And this is the same concept that for those of you who've used Infowise for a while should know quite well. It's just that it's all in one area, which makes a lot of sense. In the past, you would go into the permission settings. In a way, things were a bit disconnected, but now you don't have to do that anymore. All of your configuration can all be done from the form designer. So that's really slick. It just makes life a lot easier, in my opinion. Okay, so what I want to say is that this is hidden based on the condition where the category is not equal to training. Okay, that's all I got to do. I broke my rule. I'm gonna be good. Hide when not training. There we go. I don't have to do this stuff, but it's just gonna make your life a lot better if you do. And then I need to show it when it is training, right? And training. Okay, so in that case, just make it writable, and this would be when category equals training. Okay, so those are two rules. Now, what's good here is we want to do things in bite-sized pieces, right? Just make small settings changes and make sure that it does what you think that it's going to do. So as I said I would do, I'm going to click on that publish button a whole bunch because I want those little footholds. I don't want to try to apply 20 settings and then find out I completely went off on the wrong track. So I'm hitting just F5 on the screen to check. So notice I don't see training date here. That's a good sign. But there it is. Okay, so that's cool. So I have like a little foothold here. I know, okay, cool, I did that setting right. But that's not all I need to do. I need to conditionally validate to make sure we get the training date if it is training category. So we need to do another setting for that. I'm going to apply that setting now. So this would be a validation rule. It's going to apply on training date. So again, these descriptions are going to help you. So I'm going to say required when category training, and now I'll actually apply the rule. So we're going to say, let's see, we're going to do column. I'll say greater than. Oh, these dates are always a bit crazy. All right, I'm gonna do it this way. I don't know you have to do it this way, but this is the way I'm gonna do it. To date, and then I'm gonna put 1-1. It's sort of arbitrary. This is just a mechanism I'm using to ensure that a date is entered for that. It needs to be greater than that, but only in this certain condition. Only when category equals training. Right? Okay, so validate empty columns. Pretty much you should always want that on. I could hardly ever think of a scenario where I haven't want that setting on. Notice that it is on by default. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Oh, it doesn't like something I'm doing. It does not want to save that. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, the error message. Okay, training date is required. And I don't need to say one category, blah, 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 because it's only ever going to appear in that situation. So just saying training date is required is fine. All right, Hound's happy. Okay. Publish early, publish often, publish all the time. Never hurts to hit this button. Okay, I'm refreshing my form. What I'm checking out is the validation, right? So first of all, it shouldn't block me if it's not training, right? So you want to test that scenario. Okay, it didn't. That's good. But if I change the category to training and I don't put that date in there, it should slap me on the wrist. We'll see if it does. Notice the way this one works actually shows you the message until you put in the information. So see that? It's not doing anything. I'm clicking save, and that's because I'm blocked on validation. All right, training dates today. validation message is gone. That's encouraging. And boom. Okay, so we made that work. So we set up kind of some dynamic situation there. All right, so that covers everything that was in that kind of first part. Now we're going to get to kind of some more fun stuff. All right, so before I move on to the next section of the workshop, let me just pause for a second. You guys are a little quiet here. I know I haven't shown anything mind-blowing. Try to think, are there any questions or things that you want to make sure that you see? Could be questions about what I've already covered or things that you want to make sure that I cover later. But I'll just pause for a second in case anybody has anything on their mind, and just enter it in the questions tool in our chat interface and go to webinar. Andrew, this works the same whether you're using modern views and lists. Everything that I'm showing is applicable. I just happen to have my list view screen on Classic. It doesn't matter. So, you know, if you have some question about that or you're getting jammed on something, just send me a note, but it doesn't make any difference at all. All these concepts apply whether you're using modern or Classic for the list configuration. Okay, let's see, what else we got? Other components of Designer get updated as you build out the form with the Designer. I'm not sure I quite understand that, Joe, like the tabs and default. Yeah, I don't quite understand. Let me sort of table that question, Jody, because as we do this, it might start to answer that. I'll try to circle back to that one. Okay, all right. Marina's question about the button bar. We're going to do that. Oh, if you use Designer, you can't use other pieces. Once you use Designer, you can't use other pieces of the Infowise design. I just don't quite follow that. You do have to use all the tools in here. You wouldn't use anything in tab settings, for example. This completely replaces that. So you're in one mode or the other. Centralized CSS to a single location. Yeah, Mark, I'm going to get into CSS pretty good fair amount in the demonstration today. I'm glad you brought that up. If you said universally, you would not apply universal CSS through this. You still need to find other mechanisms to do that. Whatever CSS you apply here is going to be specific to the form that you're building. Obviously, you could reuse those, copy CSS from one form to another, but in any case, that's how it works. Actions and alerts separate from, yes, Miriam, completely separate. All that still works exactly the same way it does. The things that are incorporated into this tool are all the design elements, column permissions, validation, and dynamic rules. And you can kind of tell when you go into the settings screen, you can see the term classic, I think, is put after some of those settings. It will kind of give you clues to things that have now been encapsulated to this. I should say that none of those things are necessarily gone, but like I say, you're either working in one mode or the other. So if you're using the new form designer, you would not use those classic settings. You know, you're not, it's on a form by form basis. So my encouragement to you would be to try to use this new approach, maybe on some more modest projects initially and work your way up with it. But you don't have to abandon that for other things you're doing. Associate items to be visible in list views. They should be, Stephen. I'm not looking at that in our particular workshop today, but that should work fine. If you put that in there, if you have any kind of difficulty or it doesn't work right, you know, just send us a note to support, and we'll try to help you out. Some of these things are still being worked on, so you know, you have to work with us a little bit. You know, it's not totally 100% polished around every single corner, but there's been a lot of emphasis here, and you know, I would just encourage you to try to use it as much as possible and understand that this is a priority for Infowise. So it's only going to continue to evolve and get more polished very quickly over time. There will come a time, in the near future where you're really not going to ever want to be using tabs and tab settings, just because it's going to be a lot of disadvantages and a lot of things missing there that are incorporated in these tools. Okay, so let me jump in. Good questions. I appreciate your engagement and thought on those topics. So let me go ahead and jump into some more stuff. If I didn't quite answer your question, I apologize. I will do more Q&A later, and I promise you I'll try to do my best. And if for any reason I still don't cover it, you're welcome to send me an email. I want to make sure you're satisfied that you get an answer. All right. So I want to do kind of some quality of life things, I guess I would call it. I just don't like the way certain things look, and the whole or major goal with the form designer is that you have more explicit control over this. So one thing I don't like here is I'd like my form to have a border around the outside, and I want some padding on it. So I'm going to do some styles with that. So remember what I said, you have to think in terms of what controls and context. Look at the bottom of the page here, and this is really important. Make sure you have the right control and focus before you apply settings. Okay, so I want a border on this. I already did background gray, so I'm gonna just keep adding more styles. So I'm gonna do border, I'm gonna do 2 pixel black. This is just my description. I'm actually going to come down here and do that. So in this case, it's easy. I can just type on these controls. I'll do solid and 2 pixel. That's it. Just hit save. There, you see it come in immediately. I want to do some padding too. So do another style. Say form padding. Okay, in this case, it's not one of these pre-built selections. I can actually do any kind of CSS. If you go down to custom styles, this is pretty much a comprehensive set of CSS attributes, and you can just pick from any of those. So one of them, of course, is padding. What I'm going to do, those of you who've done some CSS, it's going to be a little more comfortable, but it's not hard to pick this stuff up. I'm going to do 2 pixel, 10 pixel, 2 pixel, 10 pixel. All right, so what does that mean? That's just kind of top, right, bottom, left. Okay, that's what it's saying. So this will give a little padding around the form. You can see it impact it. And I'll just go ahead and publish that. I like to do this a lot. And we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so refresh my screen. There it is. Okay, we got our border. Notice there's a little padding on the left and right. It's not kind of squashed up against the side. Likely these are some kinds of things that you're going to like to do a lot with forms. Next thing that I want to do, the buttons. Someone asked me about the buttons. I want to do some buttons. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is go over here. If you look on here, you can do individual buttons, or you can do button bar. To me, it's easiest to just do the button bar. I'm just going to drag it into my container, and once I do that, for button set, I want to do custom. 1 second. I see some of you guys have questions in the chat. I'll get to you in a second. Let me kind of get through this section first. I like them to show on the right. I'm just going to kind of do normal SharePoint stuff. Okay, so custom, aligned right. And I'm going to do, I just want to do save and cancel for this one. So since that's the case, I'm going to pick edit, close that. I'm just kind of trying to make it look like people are used to in SharePoint initially for this one. Okay. And what else do we want to do? Let's change our tab theme. I don't like this one. It's kind of plain. Whoops. Yeah, I'm on the tabs control. That's one thing I was wondering just a second. I was wondering, do I have the right control and focus? So there's some kind of pre-built themes for that. I like the impact one. So, whoops, there it is. See how it kind of stands out a little bit more? Really fast and easy to apply these settings. Okay, so publish early, publish often. Okay, and then see how it's really helping me a lot to have this form page open, because I can just keep refreshing it and make sure that it's looking how I want. Okay, there's my buttons at the bottom. They work just the way that you think they would. They're just regular old triggering the SharePoint save and cancel. Notice this is sort of duplicitous. The save function is also, just built into SharePoint too. I've got the save control and cancel up at the top too. So it's just doing exactly the same thing as those. All right, so we got those. Change the tab theme. Let's do something fancy with our project field. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to style it with a green background color. Yes, this probably doesn't look too good, but I'm just kind of showing a concept. I'm going to make it green background and text align center. So putting a description in there. One thing that's cool when you're doing the custom tiles, just type the first letters of what you're doing and it'll just jump right to it. It just makes it faster. So text align center and save. Okay, well, our fields are super wide. We're going to do something about that in just a second. All right, so that covers that one. Next thing we're going to do, I like to have like a little border around the tab. See, everything kind of blends together. This is an interesting situation in that I can't quite do this directly by just putting border on the tabs. I don't really want to go into show you right now, but if I went into the tab control, which I have in focus right now, and I add a border style, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna do what I want it to do. And you're going to bump into these situations. And when you do, you're going to have to kind of go a level deeper, so to speak. There's this CSS control in here, which lets you add your own CSS. Now, I know some of you probably are cringing at the thought of putting in some of those style references, but I will tell you, it's not hard. You don't have to do it very often. And it does let you get the precise control that you sometimes will need to do the form. What's really nice about this, in comparison to the old way of doing things, is with, say, tabs and tab permissions, we have those style rules at the bottom, or you'd have to do something like put a content editor web part and embed it in the form page and do an include and do some hairy stuff like that. In this case, we can just enter that stuff really fast and easy here. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how you figure out that kind of stuff. So I happen to know through checking out this page something about which class that is. So I kind of have a web development background, and I do this type of stuff. It's not too hard to do. And in browsers, whether you're using IE or Chrome, you can open up the developer toolbar, and what you can do is just kind of highlight an area that you're looking at and try certain things. Okay, so I've got my tabs here, and I kind of take a note of what I'm rolling over. So if I'm on this one, I can do something like see what it would look like if I had a certain style there. So kind of try it out here first, and if I like what that's doing, that's kind of a confirmation to me. At this point, really all I have to do is reference that. Now that does need a little bit of knowledge of CSS, but I'm gonna kind of put some stuff in here and show you what that would look like. All right, so I'm saying UL with the class of nav. That list item element, I want you to have a border for me. Okay, border 1 pixel, solid black. And I also want to do another entry. Actually, I'm going to do gray for that one, just a second. do 999, that's gray. It will make a very similar entry with one with black. Basically, it's about which tab has focus. That's what I'm dealing with right now. So we're doing, there's this active class that's on the one that's in focus. So on this one, we'll do black. That's all I have to do. I just hit close. And of course, if you're doing something like that, you want to publish that out. That's the kind of thing I want to check and see if I updated my form. Sometimes you think you've done it correctly and it doesn't work or something. So see how there's kind of a border, I have a little sharper contrast compared to the background. I don't want it to blend in so much. So kind of a subtle difference, but we're going to do some more things like that here in a second. So the key takeaway here is that you can't always get the control styled through those attributes on the right bar. There are cases where you're going to need to get into the CSS, and as I say, it's not too often, but it does come up, and it is helpful to know how to do that. Okay, field widths. I don't like these goofy, super wide field widths. They don't need to be that wide. It looks kind of ridiculous. So I want to fix that, and I'm going to do that right now. So I know, for example, project doesn't really need to be that wide. So I'm going to say, for a lot of these, I'm going to say, I'll just call it a narrow control width. I'm going to copy that description because I'm going to do this multiple times. So width 300. I've discovered if you leave out the pixel, it figures it out. So I can just hit save. And I'm going to kind of go through and do that for all the fields where it makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to do that for project leader. That doesn't need to be so wide. Do that again. Width 300. Notice how fast it is to do this. It really doesn't take a lot. Project team could have a lot of people in it, and description could have a lot of content. So those ones I'm just going to leave them alone. All right, so do that here. Width 300. Yep, just kind of trying to make my form look a little bit more normal. Training date, that doesn't need to be wide. Okay, whoops, I'm going to put it in pixel. Status does not need to be wide. Width 300. Percent complete does not need to be wide. Okay, I think I covered those pretty well. The manager ones, I can leave those alone for now, I think. All right, let's go ahead and publish it. Let's make sure it's doing what we want it to be doing. All right, again, I'm just refreshing the browser page just to get that new styling. Okay, so that looks more normal, right? When I hit a drop down, I don't expect a massive bar filling the entire width of the form. We're, just getting things kind of cleaned up a little bit. One thing I don't like is I don't like this gray background of the signature. I kind of want that to stand out. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that too now. So the reason it's like this is some of these controls have transparency by default. And so it's just showing whatever the background is behind it. And so, we just want to change that. So we'll set the background color white for the signature field. All right, so I'm going to the signature tab and put that control. In this case, I can just do that. Note, see how it says transparent? It'll change to white, which is FFF. Whoops, I want to say that. All right, let's see if that makes it look a little better. All right. It's a very incremental process. Okay, that looks better to me. You know, I have that white background. It's not gray anymore, so that kind of fixed that for me. So that takes care of that issue. All right. I want to do a border on the cancel button. See how that kind of blends in? This is kind of picking nits at this point. I think the first time I went through this, my background actually blended with that. But in any case, I'll show you how to do this because this is something you might really like to do. Similar kind of situation. If I go to adjust the attributes of the button, it's a little tricky. It doesn't quite do what I want it to do, so I have to kind of take it to the next level deeper. So when you're in this situation, what you want to do is highlight that element and find out what it is, okay? So I know just by going in here, there's this class, and I can just copy and paste this. So I just need to reference that class to be able to do what I need to do. So I come into CSS. It's really easy to do this. So I come in here and I just pasted it in. I don't have to remember this craziness. This is a class, so I do need to make sure that dot is there. I think I have to have it like that. Okay, so, okay, border 1 pixel, solid black. Okay, close that, publish that. Oh, I think I did something kind of strange that I'm going to fix. I made a mistake. I know exactly what I did. I actually dragged my button bar control onto my first tab, which illustrates an important concept. This, whoops, needs to be there. Tabs, container, button bar. No, that's not right. Hold on a second. There we go. See if that fixed it. Haha, okay. So it thought I was putting the buttons just on the first tab. So that's kind of a pitfall to watch out for. Just make sure when you put your button bar in that it's directly within the container outer control. So not too hard to fix. I just had to drag and drop it. Okay, let me publish that. See if we fix those couple of things. Yeah, see how the cancel's got a black border? So pretty minor thing, but it's kind of nice to know that when you want to do something really specific like that, you have the ability to do it, and it's not horribly complicated to figure out how to do that type of thing. And we get our button showing on both tabs, so that's good. All right, let's do an ad hoc control. Let's do fragments. That may be something you guys have used in tabs and tab permissions. I want to add a notes to kind of instruct the user, which is going to be a fragment in the manager section. And I'm going to style it a little bit also. So that's the next thing that I want to do. So on the left in the controls, you see the fragment. So it's just the same concept as when we would do this in the tabs and tab settings. So first thing I want to do is I want to change the content. So I'm going to say, whatever, please review all the project requirements. Do not sign off until all the work is complete. Just if you just had some special instructions you want to do. This is just a regular visual editor tool. You can do formatting, insert pictures, whatever. You can do whatever you want to with the column, insert columns, however you want to do that. And then just like all the other controls, I can style that. So we'll do a little styling, give it like a light yellow. Sure, why not? And give it a border. I'll do a dotted border for this one, 1 pixel. Okay, yellow. Notice you can combine too. So I'm actually applying a couple of things in one roll. Either one's fine. One's not necessarily better than the other. It's just however you want to do it. So I'm saying yellow background and dotted border. Okay, that's all set. Let's just see what it looks like. Sometimes things look a little different between what you see in the form designer page and what's on there. So that's why I really like to go and refresh. Notice, for example, the CSS, you actually don't see that button border in the form designer. It's kind of a minor thing, but this form is the real deal. This is what the user's going to see. Okay, cool. So that's in there. All right, let me do one next thing, and then I'm going to go, we'll do some more Q&A and talk about some of the things that we have going on, and I'll try to answer your questions. So thank you for being patient with me. Sometimes it's hard. It kind of throws off my flow if I'm going back and forth through the questions. I kind of forget where I am. Okay, I'm going to do something that I think you guys will like. I'm going to do curved tabs on the top. There isn't inherently in the form designer a way to do that currently. Maybe they'll add it in later, but in any case, it's nice to know that I can just do it myself with a little bit of CSS. So just like I did before with the buttons, I just want to show you how you would figure this out. You don't have to figure this out in that I'm going to kind of show you the entry you're going to put, but I just want to show you how I went about doing that. This is the classes for those tabs. So all I'm doing is basically finding out, what is the name of those classes. I need to know what the name of that is, and then I can go in and get some CSS for that. So to get those curved tab tops, I just come into the CSS, and what I need is this UL nav. This more than sign, it's in CSS, it's direct descendant, meaning the immediate child of that. I need both of these things to be referenced, and then the setting will be applied now. And we're going to use border radius. And I need to curve the top of the tabs for me. Now there's also some other settings in there that I have to override. You do have this idea of cascading style sheets of the order in which those rules are enforced. And in this particular case, I have to add this important tag, something you sometimes might refer to as the big hammer. It's sort of a way to force this rule. If I don't do this, it's going to get overridden and ignore what I'm asking for it to do. All right, so there they are. That's cool. That's a very good sign. And what's nice about this, you can tweak that to, whatever your preference. I think it looks cool. I think it's something I would probably reuse a lot. That's another important thing. If this seems like a hassle to you doing that type of thing, just know that, once you've figured out that one time, once you figure out that curved tab one time or the button border, you can reuse all this stuff super easy. Just copy and paste that code in. You don't even have to think about it ever again. So it's really, rare that you even have to deal with it at all. So there's some curved tabs for you. We need to mark required fields, or we might like to do that. Let's just say that even in modern forms, although they don't typically have that anymore, it just may be the preference of how you want to do the form. So we have a lot of required fields in here, but they're not marked required. We might just want to clue the user in to know that that's the case. So there's just a checkbox you can hit to make sure those required fields, have that. So I just tick that box, and it'll do that for me. I'll go ahead and highlight those. Notice it's really fast to do this. This really doesn't require a whole lot of effort on your part. Training date, I can go ahead and mark that required because it doesn't even show unless the category is there. And of course it is required if it does show up. % complete, we'll say that's not required. All right. And we can change the label. So regardless of what the field is named, I can make it be anything. Let's say I don't need all this, project that, project the other thing. I may just want to say, just leader, team, just kind of clean it up a little bit. And I may want to explain this. People might not understand that exactly. So instead of %complete, I'm going to say, enter % of completion. So you can make that read however you want. You have complete control. And I'm going to do some descriptions. This is your help text. So let's do that for project leader and team. So in here, main leader of the project, responsible for project oversight. All right, there's a description for that. I did the wrong thing. Whoops, hold on. I meant to put that here. All right, short. All right, one more thing here. Okay, all team members All right, and then you can do the help bubble thing, just like with the tabs and tab permissions. I don't really want all this stuff on the form, so we'll do pop up for project leader. So that just changes it to a help bubble. Okay, so let's go ahead and publish that and just see what it looks like. What's cool is that it happens pretty fast. I get impatient if it takes a long time for the setting to publish, but in my experience, those go pretty quick. All right, there's our help bubble, so we can kind of see what that's like. So if I don't check that, it just shows kind of the inline under the field. It's there. It gives you a pop-up description. This is handy where you have those kind of long, rambling descriptions or help information. If I already know that and I don't want to read it, it doesn't clutter up the form, so that's kind of nice. All right, I will pause as I promised I would before we get into our third and final section of the customizations we're doing. So I want to try to do my best to answer your questions for you. All right, so hang with me. I'm kind of going through my log here, and I'm going to see what I missed. Yeah, so Mark had asked, do we have plans to centralize CSS customizations to a single location? No, we do not. You need to handle that somehow in your environment. Everything you do with the Ultimate Form settings, it's always list specific, so you need to find another mechanism to do that. We already covered, Miriam had asked if actions and alerts are separate. Those are separate. They always will be separate. It's not related. So, of course, workflow actions connected to your form are important, but nothing has changed in terms of how those work or how you apply those. You go into that setting and do that separately. Let's see, JavaScript using the buttons to start the action. Not sure what you're doing on that one. Okay, this person had left. I think somebody else is helping me answer questions in chat. Okay, that's good. Let's see. Yeah, you can do associated items. That's supported in here. I didn't demonstrate it in the form, but it is a supported functionality that you can do in Form Designer. All right, hang with me. Can existing form be open in Designer for future edits? You would start the form from scratch if you're going to switch. So you kind of have to choose one mode or the other. What I encourage you to do is to get into a mode where you are looking to use the new form designer going forward. It may be the case that you don't want maybe to switch over some really established forms you've already generated using the classic settings. But in terms of your development, you want to get in a habit where this is your go-to. And especially as this really becomes watertight and comprehensive in terms of everything that you need to do, this is going to be your go-to for settings. And at some point, tabs and tab settings will be rarely used. As I say, we're not going to remove or take that away from anybody. We have no intent to do that whatsoever. It's just that you have so many superior options and so much more flexibility with this. Percentage width fields to maintain appropriate responsiveness on different screens. It's up to you. There's lots of versatility, as you can see with the CSS. In general, the goal should be to try to use the simplest settings that you can. I think Vladi had answered to this, but it's really about flexibility. So we don't necessarily recommend do this and don't do that. You should experiment and try this, but with the form designer, you really have the ability to enter your own attributes. As you saw, there's a long list of various attributes. So experiment and try and see what works. You see the results immediately too, so you really don't have to guess. It's you're going to see right away whether it's doing what you want. Do you drag a fragment for each one if they're multiple? Yeah, you just you can have multiple instances of those. It's just something you can add. How do you distinguish them? I don't think it should be confusing. If I go to the manager, it's just inline content. I take the point. It'd be nice if you could maybe put a little label on the side, but I don't think, usually don't use fragments a lot. I never really had more than 2 or 3 of those in any form I'm doing, so I think you'll be okay. Modified the field length. Marianne, we have a recording, so if you did miss anything in our presentation, just go back and watch the recording and you'll see just exactly how to do that. Field length is done by just setting the width attribute on a control. A lot of questions about associated items. That's not covered in this workshop today, but it is supported. You can add the control in there. If you do have issues with that, just drop us a note. We'll try to help you out. Radio buttons, not covering that in today's webinar. Again, just try it. If you're not able to do what you want or you can't get it to look the way that you want, send us a note to support@infowisesolutions.com and we'll try to answer that for you. Not covering redirect function either, but general concept there. You can set a URL and when you form save, you could have it redirect, say, to like a thank you page. That's the general idea. We're not going to have time to cover that for a workshop, but it's supported and you can experiment and see how that would work. All right, so I'm coming to the last questions. As far as the type in a value, that's not a part of Form Designer. You'd probably need to add some script at this time, and that may change in the future, but that's something you'd have to handle with your own customization. Multiple columns. Kelly, perfect last question. That is the last thing that I'm covering in the workshop today. So we're getting near to the end. This third and final section, actually, I'm going to do multiple columns. We're going to do a couple other things as well. So I'm going to show doing some money fields. We're going to have multiple columns, and I'm going to do dynamic role. So in Form Designer, that really has to do with containers. I'm actually going to hop out of that screen for a second, and I need to add some more fields. So we will go to that section now. I'm going to just go to my list settings, and I'm going to create some more columns. I'm going to do these for another tab that I'm making. So first one I'm going to add is meal expenses. These are all going to be currency. Where are you? Okay, there you go. Not required. Just use default settings for these. Okay, so meal expenses, miscellaneous. travel expenses, and then miscellaneous expenses. Okay, travel expenses. All right, just using default settings. Miscellaneous expenses. Currency. Okay. And then total expenses. I think hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Okay, so this one's going to get automatically calculated for me. Okay, and I'm going to add one more field. I'm going to call this expense notes. This will be another rich text editor. Multiple lines of text, rich text, sure, 12. I don't want that in the default view. Okay, so I'm just adding these fields to kind of get to my next part. I'm going to go back to my favorite view, which is my edit form, so I can keep doing that refresh to preview the form. I'm going to come out of this and come back in. And I'm going back. The reason I did that is because I've added some fields and stuff, and I wanted to capture that for me. Okay, so first thing for tabs, I'm going to add a new tab. So this one will be expenses. Okay, there it is. Boom. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do, so I can go to the checklist. I'm just making sure I don't miss anything. Is containers. This is how we're going to do the multiple columns. So I'm going to add a container into this tab. Whoops, didn't like that. There we go. And put that focus. Okay, I want this to have 2 columns. Now the cool thing is I can put containers inside of containers inside of containers. I can kind of keep going with that. It's just cascades down however much I need to. I don't think you'd have to really go that far with it, probably not more than a couple levels, but it's certainly possible to do that. And then once I have that 2-column container inside of that, I can add 2 more containers. I'll drag that in there. See how it's kind of filling up half of it? That's because I set that outer container to be 2-column. Okay. So I kind of have left and right now. See how they're kind of like right next to each other? So that's how you can do multiple columns. And I could have made that 4 or whatever. I can set it up however I want, or I can break the columns down within this. So it just kind of keeps going and going. All right, now I'm going to add my fields in. So the way I want to do it is I'm going to add my expenses over here. Meal expenses, miscellaneous expenses, travel expenses, total expenses, and then expense notes. I'll put that on the right side. Okay. So there's my fields. So we got that covered. Okay, now I've got these goofy wide fields again. Expenses, I don't need that much room for money, right? So I'm going to set some widths on those. So say narrow money, width, and width 100. All right, and then I just rinse and repeat. Okay. Width 100. Boom. Width 100. Okay. Next one, width 100. Very fast. Okay, so now they're not the goofy wide fields, which is good. I want the expense notes to be wide because that's going to be kind of extensive, right? That takes care of that. I want to do total expense. I kind of want to highlight that. So I'm going to add a style to change the background color there. I'll do that light yellow that I like so much. There it is. Yellow background. Okay. And this one's going to get auto-totaled for me. So I want a column permission on this. This really only needs to be read-only. User is not going to enter values for that. So this one's simple. Read-only for total. Okay, save. There it is. Okay. Probably going to need to publish. I want to see if this is all working right. Publish. What you want to do is like start rolling through here and do 50 different settings without having checked your results. That's probably not a good idea. You really need to confirm and make sure everything's happening the way you expect it to be. Okay, that's good. All right, I'm just kind of putting in some test values. Okay, all right, so it's not totaling for me yet. That's kind of the next thing that I want to do. So let's do our dynamic rule. Okay, same concept as what you're used to. It's just that instead of doing it in the classic settings, you are now going to do that directly here in the form designer interface. So that's under rules. This one's easy. I kind of cheated. I did come up with an example that I knew was going to be really easy for me. And it gives you the drop down with your column selected. So this one's just meal expenses plus travel expenses plus miscellaneous expenses. Where are you? There it is. That's funny. I expected it to be alphabetical, but anyways, there it is. Okay. That's all I got to do. Save. And we want to see if that's working. I'll go ahead and publish. We'll see if it's doing auto totals for us and it's read only. All right, $34. Oh, yay. Okay, cool. There it is. $50, $10. There it is. Okay, and I can't change this. So that's exactly what I want it to be doing. So that's good. All right, let's do short notes label and do pop-up description for notes. Let's put some stuff in for that. I'm just going to call this notes because we're already in the expenses tab. Do I need to say that? I want the field to still be called that because I need that, but I'm just going to label that notes. And just put in all of the relevant details in order. Okay, we'll do pop-up description for that because I don't necessarily need to see all that stuff all the time. There's something else that I want to do. I don't want this, see how there's kind of like this big empty space because I made my fields wider. I'm going to actually scooch over the expense notes over, and I am going to do that. I just think it looks a little better. I'm going to do something. There's different ways you can do this. The way I'm going to choose to do it is with the style where I'm going to give it a negative left margin. Move notes to the left. So I can say margin left. I can actually say like -300. Now it looks weird on this page, but you know, sometimes you kind of have to like try it out and see what it's going to do. So I'll go ahead and publish that and see what it's going to look like. Okay, so that looks better to me. We're kind of like filling up the real estate. But there's different techniques you could do with widths or whatever. But it's just one way that you could do that. All right, there's another thing that I want to do. The way this editor works by default, it just kind of shows the first line and it keeps expanding as I type. But I just want it to be bigger starting out. I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's try some stuff. Okay, so the way this works right now is, see how it just kind of keeps bumping down? That's pretty cool. I like how that works. It makes sense. But if I just wanted that to be taller initially, I got to figure out some way to do that. So just like the other stuff I was doing, if I was trying to figure out a way to access that control, if I just set height on this, the outside of the notes field is what's going to expand. It doesn't quite do what I want it to do. So I need to kind of go that next level deeper. And what I really need to do is adjust the height of this. So there's this class QL container. And I want to say when those are on the page, I want them to be taller. So see how that stretched out? That way, just kind of like when the form starts out, it'll be that way. That's what I want to do. So I'm able to kind of test it out here first. And then once I know that works right, this one's really easy, right? All I need is this class, and I'll set its height. So I can just come back in here and just paste that and just do exactly what I did a second ago. Make that 300 pixel for me and publish it. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. Now remember, we've got a couple of those in there, so we don't want to forget that. Any instance of that rich text editor is going to be that way. So just something to be aware of. See how I made this one taller? So you just have to be aware of what you're doing. So now our text editor, instead of just one line, it kind of starts filling up the page for me. That's kind of what I wanted to do. All right. That covers everything that I plan to do in this particular workshop. We are continuing to add articles and information about more things that you can do in Form Designer. I have time. We've got plenty of time. So if I didn't quite answer your question well, or you want to talk more on a topic, go ahead and enter your question in the chat, and we can talk about that now. Hopefully, Kelly, that helped you a little bit with the multiple columns. The gist of that was to do those multiple columns, you start with an outer container, change the column count, and then normally what you will do is put containers into those columns. Why doesn't meal expenses and notes line up at the top? They look like they line up to me. I'm not sure I understand that. Don't know about that one. On the button bar, what is meant by primary and default? Good question, Marianne. Primary and default. Oh. I'm not sure the answer. Oh, Flotty answered for me. He says it's the color scheme. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's a style setting. Thanks, Flotty. I didn't know that. Oh, in Designer, it didn't line up. I still don't see it. They are lined up. I don't know. I just don't understand, Kelly. I'm sorry. Not trying to give you a hard time. In any case, you should be able to get them lined up. I don't think you'll have an issue. Let me know if you get jammed. I think that it's going to wrap it up today. I really appreciate you guys' time attending the workshop. I know sometimes because we're not talking directly, I can't answer your question to the extent that you want to. And it's just hard in this format to take care of that. But in any case, I'm going to post a recording of our workshop today. We do want to work with you and help you as you're using Form Designer. Please be in touch with us. There's different things you can do. You can post questions in the comments below the tutorial articles about Form Designer. You can send an email to support, of course. You can send an email to me. I am willc@infowisesolutions.com. I'll try to do my best to try to answer for that. And then also, I work with our developers. Vladi is one of our developers. We have other developers too. And, hopefully you have some understanding and some patience of this being a feature set that's been released this year. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into getting this set up, and we really are trying to do our very best to make it work as well as it can for you. So, we think of ourselves as teaming with you to make sure that it does what you want. So your feedback is heard, and just because if you run into something and it doesn't work exactly the way you want now, don't think it's just all that you're going to get. Let us know what's going on. We want it to be a smooth experience, and I absolutely know, based on the evolution of this platform over the last 10 plus years, it just keeps getting better, and that's definitely going to be the case. I think it's really cool now. You can do tons more with this in a lot easier manner than you could with tabs and tab permissions. So I'm really pleased that our development team put this out, and I have total confidence that as good as it is now, it's just going to keep getting better. So I hope you guys feel that way too. I hope you're getting on board with it. And I hope that you're, ready to work with us and communicate. Where you have a problem, let us know. Send us a message, and it's just going to keep getting, more and more features to it. All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time today. Hope you have a good rest of your Friday. I'll post a link to the recording later, and love to hear from you guys. And thank you very much.